I remember that night the reporter came, not because he saved anyone, but because everything got worse the moment he arrived. I was awake when it happened, sitting on the floor of my room, listening to the lights buzz overhead, counting the seconds between the screams echoing through the vents. Then I heard something different. Glass shifting, metal scraping, a soft grunt. I crawled toward the door and pressed my ear against the cold steel. Someone was climbing through the window in the hallway. Someone who didn't belong here. I peeked through the crack, just enough to see him, a man, a stranger, holding a camera like it was a shield. He moved carefully, quietly, like he knew the walls were listening. I didn't know his name. I didn't know why he was here. But I knew one thing the moment I saw him. He wasn't supposed to be in Mount Massive, and Mount Massive wasn't going to let him leave. When the stranger dropped into the hallway, the air changed. I didn't know how to explain it. It was like the building noticed him, like Mount Massive took a breath. The lights flickered once, then steadied, almost like the asylum was watching. He didn't see me. He didn't even look my way. He just lifted his camera, the little red light blinking in the dark, and started walking down the hall like he wasn't afraid of anything. I wanted to call him out, to warn him, to tell him to leave before the others found him. But before I could say anything, I heard chains, heavy ones, dragging across the floor, slow, steady, getting closer. I backed away from the door and held my breath. The stranger didn't run. He didn't hide. He just pressed himself against the wall and waited. That's when he appeared, a giant silhouette turning the corner. Broad shoulders, massive arms, the faint glint of metal cuffs dragging behind him. Chris Walker. I'd only seen him once before. Once was enough. He walked right past my door, breathing like every inhale hurt him, like every exhale was a warning. The stranger didn't move, didn't make a sound. Walker stopped, sniffed the air, turned his head just slightly, like he could smell fear. I thought he was going to kill him right there. But then, a scream echoed from somewhere deeper in the asylum. High-pitched, panicked, cut off too soon. Walker growled and walked toward the sound. The stranger waited until the chains faded into the distance. Then he lifted his camera again and kept moving. Like he didn't know what he just survived. Like he didn't understand what kind of place he'd walked into. But I knew. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for him. I didn't see the stranger again for a while. Not until the screaming stopped. Not until the lights flickered again. Not until the building made that low, groaning sound it only made when something terrible was about to happen. I crept out of my room, just far enough to peek around the corner, just far enough to see the second floor walkway. The stranger was up there. He'd gone into one of the offices. I heard the door slam, heard him breathing hard, heard him whispering something to himself like he was trying to stay calm. When he came back out, the hallway wasn't the same. Two metal shelves had been pushed across the walkway, blocking his path, trapping him. He squeezed through the gap, slow, careful, desperate. And for a moment, I thought he'd actually make it. But then I heard it. Chains, dragging, closer. He froze, I froze. And then he stepped out of the shadows. Chris Walker. Bigger than I remembered, breathing like every inhale hurt him. Eyes locked into the stranger like he'd been waiting for him. The stranger whispered something, a prayer maybe, or a curse. It didn't matter. Walker grabbed him by the throat like he weighed nothing, lifted him off the ground, and then, deep, broken voice that still echoes in my nightmares, he said,
Little pig.
Then he threw him, not into a wall, not onto the floor, through the window. Glass exploded everywhere. The stranger's body disappeared into the darkness below. And for the second, I thought he was dead. I thought that was it, that the asylum had swallowed him whole. But then I heard something. A voice. Soft, calm, almost welcoming. Father Martin. He was standing over the stranger's body in the atrium, smiling, talking to him like he'd been expecting him. The stranger didn't move, didn't speak. He was unconscious, or worse. I didn't know, and all I knew was that the asylum wasn't done with him. Not yet. For a long time, I didn't move. I just stood there in a dark hallway, staring at the broken window, listening to the glass settle on the floor below. I kept waiting to hear something. A scream, a groan, anything. But there was nothing. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. The kind that makes your stomach twist. I thought the stranger was dead. Anyone would have been. No one survives a fall like that. Not in this place. But then I heard footsteps. Soft ones. Not Chris Walker. Not a guard. Not a patient. Someone calm. Someone who walked in like they weren't afraid of anything in this building. I leaned forward, just enough to see through the shattered frame. Father Martin was standing over the stranger's body. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't checking for a pulse. He wasn't calling for help. He was smiling, talking to the unconscious man like he'd been waiting for him. Like this was all part of some plan only he understood. I couldn't hear everything he said, but I caught one word.
Apostle.
The stranger didn't move, didn't respond, didn't even twitch, but Father Martin just kept talking, like he knew the man could hear him, or like he didn't need him to. After a while, he stepped back, folded his hands, looked up at the broken window, right at me. I ducked away from the frame so fast I almost fell. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. I waited, counted the seconds, listened for footsteps coming up the stairs, but none came. When I finally looked again, Father Martin was gone. And the stranger, he wasn't dead. He was starting to move, slowly, painfully, like someone waking up from a nightmare into another one. That's when I realized something I didn't want to believe. The asylum didn't kill him. It chose him. After the stranger fell, after Father Martin whispered to him, the asylum went still. Too still. I stayed near the broken window for a long time, listening to the building breathe. Mount Massive always made noise. Humming lights, rattling vents, distant screams. But now it felt like it was only holding its breath. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and everything went black. Not dim, not low. Black. The kind of darkness that feels thick, heavy, alive. I pressed my back against the wall and slid down to the floor, trying not to make a sound. In the dark, sound is everything. Somewhere below me, I heard metal slam, then water, then footsteps splashing through it. The stranger had gone into the basement. I didn't know why. I didn't know how he could even see down there. But I knew one thing. Nobody goes into the basement, not unless they're forced to. The air changed again, colder, sharper, like static crawling across my skin. Then when I heard it, a whisper, not a voice, not a person. Something moving through the dark without footsteps. Something that didn't breathe. The Walrider. I'd never seen it, not clearly, but I felt it before. In the way the light died, in the way the air shifted, in the way the walls seemed to tremble. And now it was awake. I curled my knees to my chest and covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't outside. It was inside. Inside the walls, inside the vents, inside my head. Somewhere far below, the stranger screamed, or maybe it was someone else. In the dark, it was hard to tell. But I knew this much. The reporter wasn't just surviving the asylum anymore. He was waking it up. The darkness didn't lift for a long time. I stayed curled against the wall, listening to the building groan, listening to the water drip through the vents, listening to the static hum that meant the Walrider was close. Then, a sound. Fast, wet footsteps, splashing, getting louder. Someone was running. Not stumbling, not screaming. Running. I crawled toward the bar of my cell and pressed my face against the cold metal. At first, I saw nothing. Just a dark hallway. Just a flickering emergency light trying to come back to life. Then he appeared. The stranger. Soaked, shaking, breathing like he'd been drowning. He sprinted past my cell so fast I almost didn't recognize him. But the camera light, The little red dot gave him away. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, didn't even seem to know I was there. He just ran, and behind him, I heard something else. Chains, dragging, fast. Chris Walker. He was hunting again. The stranger turned the corner, disappearing into the dark. Walker followed, his footsteps shaking the floor. His breathing echoed through the hall like a warning. I pressed myself back into the shadows, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The basement hadn't killed the stranger. The fall hadn't killed him. The darkness hadn't killed him. But now the whole asylum was awake, and it wanted him. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. If he survived, maybe I could too. After the stranger ran past my cell, the hallway stayed empty for a long time. No footsteps, no chains, no screams, just the sound of the building settling, like Mount Massive was thinking. I stayed pressed against the bars, staring into the dark, waiting for something, anything, to move, but nothing did. Then the lights flickered, not fully on, not fully off, just enough to show the dust floating in the air, and a shape forming at the end of the hallway. At first, I thought it was smoke, or a shadow, or my eyes playing tricks on me. But then it moved. Fast, silent, wrong. The air around me dropped, cold enough to sting my skin. The lights buzzed, struggling to stay alive, and the shape drifted closer, not walking, not floating, just appearing wherever it wanted to be. The Walrider. I'd heard it, felt it, feared it, but I'd never seen it, not until now. And it didn't look at me, didn't even slow down. It just passed through the hallway like it wasn't there, like I wasn't worth noticing. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw something inside it. A face, a scream, a memory trapped in static. Then it was gone. The lights steadied, the air warmed, the hallway was empty again. I sank to the floor shaking, trying to breathe, not because I thought it would kill me, but because I finally understood something I'd been too afraid to admit. The stranger wasn't running from the patients, or the guards, or even Chris Walker. He was running from that thing inside the walls, inside the vents, inside the building. And somehow, it wanted him more than it wanted any of us. I looked down the hallway where he disappeared, where the Walrider had followed, and for the first time since I'd been locked in Mount Massive, I felt something I didn't recognize. Hope. Not because I'd escape, not because I thought I'd survive, but because someone else was fighting back, someone the asylum couldn't break. I stood up, stepped away from the bars, and whispered to myself, "If he can make it out, maybe I can too." That was the night Mount Massive fell apart, and the night I stopped waiting to die.